sustainability. So we've had sessions on retrofitting buildings, embodied carbon, district heat networks, gardening, and sort of biodiversity, and all manner of other stuff. So this is the 9th month we've done it. So we're going to do one every month till the end of the year, and then we'll take stock and see if we want to continue doing it. We normally have a fairly good turnout from across the council, not just Lancaster West staff, and also residents as well. So residents have been invited to this session as well. I can see people joining. Alice, have you started to record at all? If you can hear me.
I haven't. I think someone is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, so if that's okay with you, Mark, we'll record the session, and what we normally do is put it on our website and app afterwards, provided the content's okay and everyone's happy with it, basically. So we'll do that. It looks like we've got people joining, so probably best to make a start. So hi all, Mark Breen is going to join us today. We're going to do a cook-off of some description. Mark, is that right? Where you're going to basically talk to us about issues around food waste, sustainable sort of produce, and using ingredients and seasonal and local food and sustainable diets, basically. And we're really going to sort of look at those subjects matter today rather than anything else. I think we're all aware of the issues around food production and the responsibility it has on kind of greenhouse gas emissions and how much food waste there is around and things like that. So be good for you, Mark, to talk a little bit more about that, give us some more information and talk us through cooking up. I think you're cooking up a soup, is that right today?
Yeah, that's right. I think Alice asked me, or I got asked Hubbub who could talk to us about this. I was like, right, I'm a busy guy, as we all are. Can I make my dinner while I do it rather than point presentation? So
brilliant.
That's where I
got it. over to you, Mark, if you want to take the floor, and then we'll field any questions at the end if people don't mind. If people can keep themselves on mute and then raise questions by the hand or at the end, and then we'll do it that way if that's okay with you, Mark.
That sounds really good. And can I put a little plea in? Please put the cameras on. It makes it so much nicer for me. I can only see Michael and Sean at the moment, and it's so much nicer when I come and have a conversation with people if I can actually see them. We've spent too long. COVID's been too long, and it's been too long on Zooms and Zoom and Teams calls. I'd love to see some faces. So that's a little. Oh, hello. Thank you. It's so much nicer, and also it helps me when I'm talking, because I can see if you're either frowning at me, yawning, or sort of enjoying it. But yeah, just as a little introduction, I'm Mark. I work for an organisation called Hubbub. We're an environmental charity. We do lots of kind of creative campaigns around all sorts of environmental areas, for everything from travel, fashion, homes, so how people heat their homes, but my interest area is food. I'm only really interested in food. Like, I love the environment, but it's all from a food angle from my perspective. But lots of other people at Hubbub do lots of other great things too. We're the guys who were involved with you and with Co-op in setting up the community fridge that I visited last Thursday. So I might mention that. Well, I'll definitely mention that quite a bit, because that's my main contact with you guys. So what I was asked to do today was just to come and talk to you on my thoughts around how food kind of links with the environment. And there's lots and lots of ways how food links with the environment, from kind of the moment we grow it or rear animals, to the business that goes around that kind of farming, all the growing, what we're doing to support the growth of crops, what sort of pesticides and fertilizers we're using, to how we transport that food, what happens to it when we're in the shops, how we buy it, how much of that food's used, and obviously there's wastage at every single stage of that. So food waste is a really big one. But it's not just that, it's the what we're eating and where we're getting it from. So the three areas that I'm going to focus on today, and they're not the only areas of food that have an impact on the environment, but the three areas I'm going to focus on, which I think are the big three, are food waste, sustainable diets, and I'll explain a little bit more what I mean about that in a moment, and then seasonal and local food. And there's lots of ways that, you know, we as a charity, and I think some of you are councillors, I think some of you work for the local authority. I'm not 100% sure who all of you are, and I can only see 4 of you, but I won't kick off about that anymore. But there's lots of ways. Hey, hello, thank you. Oh, thank you. There's lots of ways that we can influence that. So the way I like to think of it is about creating an environment where people can make good food decisions, and that's something that local authorities, businesses, and charities like mine, and the government, let's not talk about them too much, but can help to shape things. So making it easy for people to make good choices. So when we're talking about, for example, sustainable diets, offering lots of vegetarian options, whether that's in a shop or whether that's through public procurement, so school meals, hospital meals, prison meals, all those kind of things. But then there's also the individual choices that we all make. So, you know, Sean probably has 3 meals a day, I think, or there or thereabouts. So he gets 3 choices every day as to what he's going to do for the environment, and then also what he's going to do at the end of that meal. So what he eats, how much of that food he wastes, all of these things have an impact on the environment. And then at a community level, which I think we're all probably quite interested in, you know, what can you do to support people to eat well for the environment, reduce their food waste, and to eat more seasonal and local food. So we haven't got loads of, I'm down in Streatham at the moment, so not a million miles from where most of you are. But we haven't got, you know, massive farms where any of us are living. But we can bring food in from the wider British countryside. We can do some growing in our local areas, and I do know there's a community growing space where you guys are based. So there's an awful lot we can do around that, just to build people's relationships with food from a very, very early age, so that they've got that relationship that's about not just eating food, but their relationship with it, touching it, knowing what it is, and that's a lifelong relationship that we hope to start. By the way, do interrupt me. You don't have to put your hand up. Just take yourself off mute if you want to ask a question or make a point or tell me I'm wrong on something. You know, I'm quite happy for that. But the first area that I was going to, and just to say, so just to put this into perspective, and greenhouse gases aren't the be all and end all, but they're the most talked about thing at the moment. It's particularly with the big COP26 thing just around the corner. But just for a stat, 1/4 of all greenhouse gas emissions come from food. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'm sure you've got targets. I mean, the local authority have got targets around that. So there's a big opportunity there to have a big impact on that. So the very first thing that I'm going to talk about, and I will get cooking in a minute. Actually, I haven't completely planned this session in my head. I've got a few notes, and I've got some food next to me that I will cook. But when I get onto that, I'm not sure. But just a few food waste facts. So let's have just 3 people. You can write it in the chat, but a guess of how much total food is wasted in the UK each year. I'll give you a clue. It's tons. So how much food is wasted in the UK each year? 3 people have a guess, and Alice said she'd give a prize to whoever was closest. Is that right, Alice?
No, but I can do. If anyone wants to answer.
Sorry, no prize. But do you have a guess? So how many tons of food is wasted in the UK each year? Come on, guys, type it in the chat. Oh, you didn't tell them they were getting an interactive session, did you, Alex? I'm just playing with you, sorry. Okay, 7 million, well done, Natalia. 100 tons, well done, Jackie. And one last one in the chat, please. One last one, and then I can tell you who's closest. Mm-mm. 32 million tons. Okay, so we have a winner It is, who's the winner? It is Natalia, actually. Natalia is the closest.
Yay!
Go on, Natalia. So 9.5 million tons of food is wasted in the UK each year, which creates about 25 million tons of greenhouse gases. That's quite hard to get your head around. What is 25 million tons of? Yeah, you were well out, Jackie. Sorry. What is 25 million tons of greenhouse gases? You know, that's pretty hard to get your head around. But it's the equivalent of 10 million cars. So if we wiped out food waste in the UK, it'd be the equivalent of taking 10 million cars off the road. That's massive. That's humongous. So we've got a lot to get after here. So of that 9.5 million tons, not all of it's edible. So you can't eat every last bit of that. You know, there's some, well, it depends what you'll eat, but there's bits of the veg that, you know, the very root of a leek might not be so tasty, or a big chunky lamb leg bone, while you can make a nice stock out of it, you probably don't want to crunch on the whole thing. So 6.4 million tons of that, it's about 2/3, isn't it? It's classed as edible. And the interesting thing is, most people, when we talk about food waste, they'll point their fingers at the supermarkets straight away. And they've got a lot to do, but 71% of this takes place in our homes. So that is a hell of a lot to go after on an individual level. So what can we do to help people to get after that food waste, to get their heads on top of it? The big thing, you know, we've done loads of behaviour change campaigns at Hubbub, and loads of research, loads of talking to people, which is kind of our speciality, as you can tell by me blibber blabbering on already. But the key things that come up are, people don't necessarily know how to store their food well. They don't know how to portion their food properly. This isn't everybody. I'm a chef, so I've got a bit of an idea on this. But these are the things that people don't know how to do. They don't necessarily plan before they go shopping, so they spend lots of money on food that they're not ever going to eat, because it's going to go past its sell by date. They don't understand use by and best before labels. There's a whole host of other stuff. They don't use their freezer enough. You know, the freezer's like a pause button. Where's the camera? A pause button for food. People don't necessarily think of it like that. So there's a whole host of really good behaviours, and you don't have to do all of them to make a difference. You can do one or two. So as a local community, what can we do to help everybody understand what they can do around their food waste? There's a whole load to go after there. Loads of information on the Hubbub website as well. There's also another website, which is Food Savvy. I can't remember if it's .org.uk, but if you look at that, that's a project we set up with Norfolk and Suffolk Council. Loads of information on there if you're interested in it. But it's not just an environmental argument. You know, we've seen Kensington and Chelsea, it's cheap by jowl, isn't it? If you excuse the terminology, we know that, you know that better than I do, but I got a real feel for that cycling through from the south up to where you're all based. People can, the average family could save £730 a year if they reduce their food waste right down. So that's a big old chunk, isn't it? I don't know what the average earnings are in kind of your ward or borough, but lots to go after there. So that's a bit of a big picture for you. I've chucked a lot of facts at you. What's the most wasted thing in your homes? If you just write down, you know, whatever it is in the chat, just give me a flavour and I'll tell you if you're kind of on the same lines as the rest of the UK. What are you wasting your home? Salad, Jackie, yeah, that's up there. That's in the top 10. Dairy, yeah, Laura, that's up there. It's in the top 10. Veggies, top 10 as well. Fresh veg, top 10. Yeah, some of the things that people are wasting. Lots of bread goes to waste. I think people aren't happy to eat it when it's stale, don't have enough ideas. Rice is an interesting one. So if you've home cooked it, you can reheat, you can cool it down really quickly and reheat it. Rice and pasta are another big ones. People don't know how to portion it properly. So if we're thinking about what we can do as a local community and kind of the leaders of the local community as you guys are, or the figureheads of the local community as you guys are, there must be some ideas around education, whether it's through schools, whether it's through communications, through social media, of giving people tips, ways to use up, you know, how can you use up these veggies? And I'm going to make a lovely Ribollita soup in a little while. That's a great way to use up veg. Actually, my sweet potato, I normally put potatoes in, but this had a bit of blue mold on the skin. So that's going in there today. But, you know, offering people reassurance that they're on the right lines, telling them how to store food properly, telling them how to cook food properly, telling them how to love their leftovers, all helpful stuff. So that's the 71% of food. That's massive. But there's still the food that the supermarkets waste, and we can help them with that. In fact, we are, because what are we doing at the moment? We've just launched a fantastic community fridge. So I was there at the launch on, was it last Thursday? I was cooking with Chef Joseph and Chef Scott. Joseph, what a guy. I love that guy. But inspiring people to cook from scratch, but also making the community the solution to food waste within businesses. So they're the answer. The community aren't the problem in this case. They're helping businesses solve the issues, whether that's the local co-op, the local Tesco, or whatever. So for those of you that don't, I'm sure you all of you know what a community fridge is, but I was just going to run through that from a Hubbub perspective for you, because you've got this fantastic facility in your area now. But I see a community fridge as a space where anyone can exchange food. It's open to everybody, but anyone can exchange food that would otherwise go to waste. It's run by volunteers. They provide a positive social space. So we certainly saw that the other day with the food flowing and the music banging out, the footy going on, which co-op set up. But it's a place for people to come together. It should be friendly, it should be open to all, it should be accessible, it should be community led, which it certainly is in your case. And it should draw people together around the environmental impact, so that, you know, the fact that we've got huge amounts of poverty throughout London and in your borough in particular, I think, you know, focus on the environmental impacts of reducing food waste. So people are coming together, they might be hungry, but that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the people in a community-led way solving the problems, because community fridges aren't food banks and they're not a solution to food insecurity. You know, we don't mean to test people when they come in. And that's not what we want to do. That's not the focus. There's no, should be, and there is no shame with coming to a community fridge. It's a fun space. So I guess this leads on to a slight, if we're in a, restaurants do, but waste a lot of food, and so do hotels, but not half as much as households, Luma, the data tells us, so loads to go after there. What I wanted to get onto in kind of a political, or a group of people who may have some interest in politics, have no idea what angle people are coming at this from, is that community fridges aren't a solution to food poverty. That's a political issue. And actually, I really hate the word food poverty. It's not a thing. There's just poverty. You know, our food prices aren't that high, but our housing prices are really high in this country, and our and real wages are going down. So while community fridges help to address that, they're not the final. Sorry, I should not use that terminology, but they're not the solution. They're not the answer to poverty. They help with it, but that is a political problem that needs to be solved, and that's something that Hubbub campaign quite hard for. I don't know if anybody wanted to come in with any thoughts at this stage. It's 20 past 3. I've spoken for about 20 minutes. I'm just going to shuffle my screen round, and I'm going to start cooking while I'm chatting, because I've got onto politics, which I won't stay on for very long, because that's not Hubbub's game at all. Any thoughts from anybody? Anything anybody'd like to share at this stage? Go on, don't be shy. No, Michael's shaking his head. Maybe you'll come in with something in a little bit, Michael. I reckon you will. So that's community fridges. And obviously, part of the thing with the community fridges, it should be a place for inspiration. Yeah, share with neighbours. Great point, Noaz. It's a good way to share food, and there's lots of apps around that. I think Olio and Too Good To Go and things like that are really good. So there's some great stuff out there. Or bring it into the community fridge, and that's how you're sharing with your neighbours. One of the things that the community fridge can be is a space to inspire people. So we saw the other day on Thursday that I was there cooking with Joseph, and I was there cooking with Scott, and we were inspiring people, hopefully. At least that's how it felt to me. But what can people do? So you'll start to see some of the same types of food coming through community fridges again and again. It'll be your breads, some of your veggies, quite a lot of perishables, because they're the things that some of the other redistributions can't deal with. So what can you do as a group of people to inspire people, or what can the community do to inspire people to use up that food that needs using? Well, there's cooking demos, there's recipe cards, there's recipes through social media, Instagram reels. I know you've got a chat, is it Robert, who does all the fantastic social media stuff in the area? So how can you get food onto there even more? So that's what that space for community fridges should be. It should be an exciting place where people come, they share their food, and they get inspired with the rest of their community. So I'm just going to take a little break from community fridges for a moment, and I'm going to talk you through my Ribollita. It's a real food waste buster. As you can imagine, it is Italian. So Ribollita, I think, and I got told off about panzanella by an Italian community member for a recipe that I didn't write the other day, but he said, this is not panzanella. Sorry, that's a terrible Italian accent. He said, this is something or other. I said, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't write the recipe, but, you know, just trying to inspire people around a bit of food. I think it was a community member who wrote that recipe. We have to forgive them a little bit, because it's nice just to give people ideas around food. But anyway, Ribollita, I think it literally means reboiled. So this soup is great for making a little bit too much of and heating it up the next day. It's really, really affordable. And it is a great way of using it. You know, somebody there in the chat said vegetables are probably the most wasted food in their house. It's a great way for using up some vegetables. I'm not sure if you can see me chopping. Let me scroll this down a little bit. It also uses up stale bread. So stale bread is one of the most wasted foods. There's lots of great ways to use it, whether that's through croutons, whether that's, you know, making a bread lasagna instead of using pasta within the lasagna. Lots and lots of exciting ways to use up bread. And I don't know, have you found with the community fridge anyone who's been a bit more involved in your specific community fridge, that you've been receiving a lot of bread donations? Is that something that's happened? Anybody? Anybody know? What do you think?
I would say that about bread donation in general. When I glance at what residents are distributing out, you always have bread in the load, and usually in good quantity. Yeah,
and a lot. So what we found is that supermarkets, while they've got better at reducing their food waste, and obviously it's really good that they're redistributing it to communities through the community fridge, there's usually an awful lot of bread donations. In fact, slightly too much for a lot of community fridges across the UK. I think one of the reasons is in a lot of supermarkets, it's really good to have that smell of bread go into the bakery. It's a relatively cheap thing to produce, and it's quite easy to dispose of if you've got a redistribution thing through community fridges. They're over donating. In fact, I'd say they're dumping it on communities. So that's something we're going to be talking to the supermarkets about. But there are some quite interesting ways to use up bread. So any inspiration you can give to people in the community for how to use up that bread, like this Ribollita soup, are incredibly important. But that is an interesting thing to keep an eye on, because obviously the supermarkets, if they are donating to your community fridge, are benefiting from that as well. They're not just doing you a favour. They don't have to report on that food that they donate as food waste, and they've all got targets to meet in terms of the food, that they can distribute. In terms of how much food they waste. So when they donate it to you, it's not classed as food waste. So it's really important that, you know, organisations like Hubbub and you guys keep an eye on what's being donated and make sure that you're getting stuff that people actually want to use, and that you're not just having to dispose of things for the supermarket so that they're not having to account for it. An interesting one to kind of keep your eyes on as you go forwards. I was going to talk to you a little bit about about sustainable diets as well as food waste. So can anybody tell me what their understanding of what a sustainable diet is? Just to give me kind of a different, you might tell me something that I've not heard before, so it'd be just interesting to get your take on it. And while you're doing that, I'm just chopping up some, I'm just cooking off some onions. I'm going to put some garlic in, and I'm going to put some leek in to my soup.
Is Mark in there? Is a sustainable diet, is that something that's using produce which is in season? Just a guess more than anything. Yeah, that's really good, Sean. Yeah, using produce in season, that's definitely part of it. Anybody else want to chuck anything else chuck their hat into the ring? Yeah.
I will add diet that is good for your health and good for your pocket.
Good for your health and good for your pocket. Yeah, absolutely. That's what
Alice is putting vegan or vegetarian. I think
vegan or vegetarian, they are considered to be more sustainable diets, but they're not the only sustainable diet. So sorry, my head's not on here. I've got either my head or my top.
You read someone else put in local as well into the chat.
Yeah, local, absolutely. These are all part of it. So there's no one correct sustainable diet. It's not like there is a sustainable diet, but it's lots of different diets that have a lower impact on the environment. So seasonal local food, more plant-based food, but not exclusively. You don't have to be eating a vegan diet to be eating a more sustainable diet. Positive impacts on your health is obviously more sustainable because we all have to pay. If everybody's eating sweets all day, every day, that's not sustainable, certainly for the NHS going forwards, is it? So it's sustainable for health, sustainable for people's pockets, and sustainable for the environment. And as I mentioned at the beginning, obviously you can educate people around that, but you have to make it a delicious option. If it's seen like a chore or it feels like we're taking food away from people, that is not something that anybody's going to go for. And we've seen over the years, British people, we as a group of people, wherever we're kind of historically from, but now we're British, we live in Britain, we hate being told what to do. So we as a group of people hate being told what to do. The British people don't like it. So what we need to do is create an environment where people can make those healthy, environmentally friendly and sustainable choices. Were you going to say something, Sean?
I was going to ask whether you, Hubbub, have had do much work with schools. Whether there's I don't know what the kind of educational option there is now for children in schools in terms of understanding where food comes from and understanding how to cook, things like that. So is there stuff going on with Hubbub with schools, or is there any role that we could play in promoting that to local schools, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any way you can promote this to schools is fantastic. I think from a very away from Hubbub, I'm a trustee in an organisation called Flavour School, and I think one of the things that I think you guys and the schools that you perhaps work with could have a role in doing is building young people's and I'm talking about kind of early years, building people's relationships with their food. And that's through a whole host of things. So I mentioned I'm a trustee for an organisation called Flavour School, and it's about sensory food education. So this is just an example of how we build people's relationships with good food. It's not just about forcing young people to eat more vegetables that they may or may not have a good relationship with, but it's about taking the pressure away and encouraging them to play with their food, to touch their food, to draw pictures of their food, to build a positive relationship with their food. And the research, this research is from Northern Europe, it's equally applicable in this country, shows that if you can help young people to build their relationship with food in that way, in an unpressured way, then it has lifelong benefits. in terms of their health, in terms of what they'll eat, and it will have benefits in terms of the environment, particularly if they're eating more fruit, vegetables, pulses, legumes, all those kind of things.
It's funny how like health and sustainable kind of from a climate perspective, they're connected in some ways, aren't they? If people are eating more healthy food, they're generally eating less meat. Would that be a fair assumption?
It's a really happy coincidence, isn't it, Sean? Or is it a coincidence that the food that's good for our bodies is also generally good for the environment? So not eating too much of one thing is a great idea. You know, we look at even if you're eating a vegetarian diet, but you're just eating potatoes, that will create monocultures. That will mean the land doesn't work properly. That will mean you need to use inorganic fertilizers, inorganic pesticides. So it just so happens, and whether it's one of the greatest coincidences, healthy diets are also good for the environment. So, you know, we see on the streets around the streets in London an awful lot of certain types of takeaways, don't we? Usually I mean, there's been some laws changes, but usually quite close to schools as well. So, you know, the fast food industry's educating our children. Not necessarily the way we want them to be educated, but they're educating our children and they're making that fashionable. So how can we build relationships, and how can we make sustainable diets fun and make people comfy with them? Number one on the list, they've got to be tasty. It can't be a chore to eat this food. It's got to be good. And, you know, I'm just looking here. That's so colourful, isn't it? You know, how can you not get excited about that food? It's not beige. It smells. No smell-o-vision today. Sorry, guys, but it smells delicious. Trust me. So it's how can we get people excited about that food, and it's not by telling them what to do. It's by helping them to build their relationship very gently with that food, but also through things like public procurement. You know, in terms of school dinners. You know, putting really exciting, delicious, healthy, environmentally friendly food on the plate.
What? 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 Why did Mommy eat?
I think someone else has gone. Yeah, I can't see who it is.
What was it?
Over here. I was going to ask Mark, do you think there's a bit of a tension between eating healthily, eating well, and sort of today's society where things are accessible quickly? I'm thinking of like Deliveroo and Uber Eats. It's very easy to order food and get food delivered for you, and there's no kind of effort really. And what's being proposed here is you know, cooking for yourself, eating sustainable produce. Is there a tension there, or is that just something that's?
Yeah, there's definitely a tension, and there's no point us as people who are trying to excite people about food, giving people 4-hour cooking jobs. You know, we're busy. We heard that I think maybe little boy, little girl, I'm not sure, but we heard everyone's busy with their kids. Everyone's working longer hours. Everybody is really busy. We have to have really quick things. You know, quick pasta dishes with nice sauces. Loads of protein, beans, pulses, nuts, seeds, all that kind of thing. So yeah, it has to be delicious. It has to be quick. People have to be able to engage with any activities that you do in your local area at times that are suitable for them. You know, we had a really nice launch event the other day, but if you were working, you probably couldn't come to it. So what we do through social media and comms so that everybody feels a part of this.
There's a question that's gone into the chat, which I'm just catching up on because my computer is slow. Is it true that sustainable diets tend to be more expensive?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, not really. So, you know, when we talk about sustainable diets, we're talking about reducing your food waste. So I already gave you the stat earlier that that's £730 a year reduced. We're talking about eating less meat. Meat can be expensive. If you look at the same amount of protein from vegetables and the same amount of protein from meat, it's less expensive to eat it from vegetables. The slightly tricky one from more of a social justice point of view is the eating better meat. So when I'm saying eat less meat, I quite often follow that up with eat better meat. But that is a tricky one. That's a tricky message, because eating better meat is expensive. So encouraging people to eat organic meat, because it's better for the environment, you know, that's a hard nut to crack. But certainly if we all sub out some of the meat we eat and sub in some plant-based proteins for it, that's a cheaper option. So I'm not saying this is without difficulties. It's certainly got its difficulties when we're trying to encourage people to do that. But when we look at the externalities of eating a sustainable diet, you know, the impact on the NHS of people eating, you know, a mix, too much sweet stuff, too much meat, too much fatty foods, you know, then we start to see some money savings as well, kind of more widely than individuals' pockets. I don't necessarily know what everyone's role is, who's on this kind of conversation at the moment. But I'd love to know, I'd love to hear any thoughts that you guys have got about things that you could do within kind of Lancaster West, wider Kensington and Chelsea, just to kind of like, I'm all up for hearing ideas of what can we do to help people to eat tasty, healthy, environmentally friendly food that they can afford. What, you know, has anybody had any thoughts on that they'd like to try out on the group? So I can chop tomatoes. I can leave a pregnant pause. So
is there any thoughts in the group there? A few people in the conversation.
Just what people are thinking. So with this Ribollita soup, I've sweated down some onions, some garlic, some leeks. You could use some celery in there, but I didn't have any. And I'm just popping in some tomatoes, so just getting the juices going in that, just while you're getting your creative juices going. Shall I tell you, just while people are thinking, shall I tell you just a few things that Hubbub have done over the years to support people to eat more sustainable diets? So we've spoken a lot about the community fridges so far. But we've done quite a lot of other things as well. So one of the main ones, well, not one of the main ones, but one of the things that we did was we did something called community kitchens, or called Kitchen Love actually, and we got sponsorship from Net to refurbish spaces in community centres, to turn them into little mini cooking schools. You know, it's a costly thing to do, but we created spaces where people could come together to cook, where food demonstrations could happen, where people could rent it out to, you know, do catering for community events, those kind of things. And I do think that bringing people together in that way to teach them how to cook will obviously have a positive impact on how they cook. They'll cook from scratch more. Which is really positive for the environment, less plastic packaging. It will be cheaper for them if they can cook. And we'll teach them kind of healthy, environmentally friendly food. Or local chefs, we'll support local chefs to do that. But I think the other thing that comes with kind of providing opportunities for people to cook together, or even grow food together. I know you've got a little community kind of garden space to cook food, is the mental side of things. So eating a healthy diet has a really kind of positive impact on your mental health and well-being. For me, standing here looking at this and smelling this, I've had quite a stressful day already. We're very busy. Tessa, who some of you met the other day, has left. So I picked up, like, my workload's gone from about here, where I just had my head up, to up here somewhere. But I'm already feeling better when I can see this kind of food and I can smell it. I'm feeling good because I'm talking to you guys. Like, to have the conversations around food is really, really positive for people's mental health. So I think, like, you know, when you put investment or you can manage to get some money into things linked with food, the return on investment is so much greater than what you put in the first place, because it spans everything, doesn't it?
I think also the just to jump in there, if I can, the connection between food and community as well is quite a big one. I think it does bring people together, and if you're trying to kind of build or maintain communities or help people to be part of their communities, then food is a good way of doing that. Whether that's community kitchens or sort of just I know from events that we do, for example, adding food to the roster brings people out of their and it engages people much more basically. So I think the more you can bring food into the equation, the better.
Well, you see that all the time, don't you, Sean? If you hold a community event with no food, what are numbers going to look like? Hold a community event and there's some food there. It's going to be good. It's always going to be good. Yeah.
It is good. It is really good. Yeah. Sorry, I keep cutting out, Mark, here.
All right, no problem.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Of course you can, Michael.
So this is a moral question. You talked about earlier about eating sustainably,
yes,
and that was in part about eating seasonally.
Yeah.
And I participate in a crowdfunding platform, and one of the offers on there at the moment is for a company seeking investment to install LED lighting so that they can grow strawberries 12 months every year. And their argument is that people are buying strawberries at Christmas time, and these are having to be air freighted in from Africa or elsewhere. So consequently, by actually bringing that into the UK, it's making it more sustainably. I mean, how would you view that?
All right, I'm going to do my very best not to give a politician's answer here, because it would be so easy to go, well, there's lots of factors and but okay, so LED, right, let's look. You have to look at all the details on this, don't you? So LED lights are relatively light on energy. We're saving the transport costs from Africa. Soft fruit would usually be flown in rather than shipped in. So bananas actually have a relatively low carbon footprint, but for things like strawberries, they have to get here really quick, so they'll be shipped in. So the carbon footprint for that would be much higher. And it's not in heated greenhouses, they're doing it through LED lights. I think I'd probably buy into their argument on that without having all the numbers in front of me. Those are the yeah, without having all the numbers in front of me, I'm sort of buying into their argument. But having said that, I'd love to see the demand for strawberries go down in the winter, and the demand for things like apples and pears and things that we actually can grow really sustainably in this country go up. You know, community orchards would be a great way, get people to have a taste for those things. I'd love to taste these strawberries. They won't be as good as strawberries growing outside in the summertime, will they? But will they taste better than the ones that have been flown over in chilled air freight from wherever? Maybe, I don't know.
It's an interesting question, isn't it? If we start to grow more things locally through technology and things like that, who actually loses out there? Is it developed nations? Is it developing nations, and so on and so forth?
Yeah,
that's another dimension, because actually buying strawberries from Africa, you're actually like providing an income to people that are most probably not very well off.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Yeah, and there'd be the kind of the patriot answer of we want to grow more stuff in the UK, and I'm personally incredibly supportive of British farmers, but we do support economies all over the world. But I'd really like to see people eating less strawberries in the winter time.
Yeah.
Eating more apples and pears.
So should I invest, Mark, or should I not?
Glad it's not my money. I don't know. No.
Advice.
Yeah. Should we invest in LED lights for strawberries in the winter time? How much are they asking for? This is like Dragon's Den now, isn't it?
Well, I think they want about 3 mil, so it certainly isn't going to come all from me.
Yeah. I'd be interested to get them to write down their calculations for how it's better for the environment. That's the question I go back to them with. I want you to show me how, like in terms of numbers, how is that better for the environment? Just on the impact that you can have, and then make a judgment based. I'm a numbers guy as well as being a chef. Well, we're all chefs and numbers guys. We need to make money. So yeah, I'd want them to write down the actual numbers and with some proof behind those, and then make a decision based on that. There you go. You got your politician's answer in the end. Yeah. Sorry, this is kind of what I hoped for, actually, though, that we could just have a little bit of a chat and a bit of a Q&A. I could kind of tee us up a little bit. But I'm just really, like, what I'm really interested, and I don't know who the best person to do this is from you guys, because I don't know loads about your area. I came there and had a lovely day the other day. And obviously, I know we've got the community fridge. I know we've got the growing patch. But what else is happening in the area? Like, what's the art of the possible for you? We all know we're on tight budgets. But what have you guys got on the agenda, or is there anything that you guys are up to that I didn't know about that, you know, that I can kind of tee up a future discussion for you guys about what next from this? You know, we've got a little bit of an idea about things. Cool. So Yvette said we started a food waste collection. How's that going?
It's going quite well if I look at the figures, but that kind of raised question about what more we could do at the back of the food waste collection in terms of behavior change. So it means that the food waste bin housing unit that we put on site at the beginning were feel like 50 half of it. Within a month, I have to double capacity by multiplying the amount. So either way, we started it as a pilot. Let me start back for the walkway, which is 3 blocks, and we installed 3 food housing unit. At the beginning, it was just filled 50% out at the end of the week, and very quickly it was overspilling. I had to get the cleaner to swap the bins inside the unit and save it, store it in the garden to wait until the collection day on Friday. So at the moment we have duplicates. So instead of 3 housing units, you have 6. Yeah. But that kind of is good. I'm very glad looking at the kind of obstacle we were thinking about, because those blocks were using chutes, the distance from their home to travel and dispose of those food waste. I was worrying that it could be a hindrance. We'll stop them from recycling. But there's a huge uptake. I'm glad, but that also means that, are they shopping well? How do we deal at the same time with people who are struggling and with that much food too wasted?
So this sounds like quite an interesting way to open up a conversation in the community, doesn't it? Yes. Whether you do that through social media or whether you do that through the food collection bins and put a note, like a little note on there for people to get back to you. But what are people wasting? And I don't imagine you want to go through those bins. I wouldn't. But you might want to ask people, say, we've been doing this for however long now. We've seen huge uptake. We've probably got more food waste than we thought we were going to get. What food are you guys wasting, and then start to explore, get some community ideas about, you know, get community recipes. You're in an incredibly rich area in terms of different cultures, aren't you? And loads of different food ideas. There's a passion for food. So find out what food's been wasted, and then maybe little competitions on social media to get people to inspire each other. If bread's been wasted, what's your bread recipe? Win a prize, win a something or other. Get people excited about their food waste, which is hard, but get people excited about their food waste and what they can do in terms of reducing it, but also turning it into tasty food.
That's a brilliant idea. Thank you. I'll take that on board straight away.
Yeah. And then we've got Sean said, we are developing a neighbourhood vision with residents with sustainability and circular economy projects central to it with longer term plans. Okay, so the circular economy thing's really interesting, isn't it? So we know circular economy is about not letting things escape from the system. So in this case, it's food waste that we're talking about. There's some fantastic ideas out there. You know, whether you get a group of people to use wasted fruit and veg to make cakes, to put more money into the community. We've seen over in East London there's a beer called Toast Ale made out of leftover bread. So people are getting entrepreneurial and turning that waste bread and baker's yeast into beer and selling it for good profits, I think. So, you know, it probably needs like encouragement for people to take an entrepreneurial approach to these different things. There's some really exciting people that I met in your community, and I think with a little nudge, don't know where the money comes from. That's always the difficult one, isn't it? Where do you get the money from to do these things? I don't know, but there is money out there. So the National Lottery Community Fund has a small grants program, which I'm sure you will have got money from at some point, called Awards for All. But if someone comes up with a good idea, there's also Unlimited, who supports social entrepreneurs. So where there's a problem, raise the issue, raise a community conversation, and then find a way to encourage people to come in with entrepreneurial approaches that can help to bring money into the community.
Mark, I was going to ask, have you come across any schemes or scenarios where local schools or local organisations who are on a daily basis producing sort of school meals and stuff are recycling that food sort of waste and stuff back into the local community? Is that even possible? So we've got 2 or 3 schools in the area. I don't know whether that's possible actually, but
so what can you? Obviously, the first thing is to reduce food waste as much as possible. But then, what can you do with it? Well, obviously, you can compost it. But from what Yvette was telling me, like you're getting too much food waste to compost at the moment. There's some really interesting stuff actually that I don't know where it got to, but there's an organisation called Feedback that you guys might have heard of, and they were doing a lot. You know, we used to feed food scraps to pigs. That got ended with, I think it got ended with foot and mouth for a safety first approach. But the Japanese have been showing us that you can pasteurize this food waste. Well, maybe not pasteurize might not be the right word, but heat treat this food waste and then feed it to pigs. And it's completely safe to do so. So that's quite an interesting approach. I don't know where it got to be honest. I don't know. They were trying to campaign for the government to make it legal. Yeah, there shouldn't really be that much waste food. Like schools should not be producing that much waste food. Should be the inedible stuff that can be composted, and they should. And are there ways to, you know, you mentioned a circular economy approach there. Are there ways for the schools to use it on site so the kids can get involved in growing, in composting, having work? Every kid loves a worm, so every kid should have a wormery, in my opinion. What sort of kid does not enjoy or get frightened by seeing worms?
Lank West wormery is what you're proposing there, basically.
Yeah, I think that every school should have a little growing project, use a little bit of the very tight land that we've got in London-based schools, but to grow just a few bits so kids can see some veg growing or some fruit growing. I'm sure some of them are already. I'm teaching people to suck eggs here.
I'm just wondering about time now, Mark. Have we got any other questions or comments that are coming through from others that haven't?
Well, people are thinking of like last 1 or 2 questions or comments. I'll show you my little Ribollita. I just need to get something to lift it up with. So I've been cooking that away. It's had the potatoes in it. It's had the onions.
Oh, wow.
I just put the kind of the bean water in there, which is kind of like a bean stock. While you're doing that, I've got just a few slices of stale bread. You know, I'll rip this up. And this is when the reboiling comes in. It's really good to get bread into soups. Because loads of bread gets wasted, but this will help thicken it up the next day. If you don't have any bread, you can use pastoral rice, and I will share the recipe with you guys for this because it's up on the Hubbub website. And what I will say is, if you're looking to inspire the community with recipes, nick them from the Hubbub website. I don't mind, credit Hubbub, but you've got a whole load of recipes there that are designed to use up leftovers. There's loads. I wrote loads last year during COVID when we went online a little bit. So I'll just put that bread in there. We had a few nice ones from the community as well, didn't we, where people have wrote them down and we printed them off and made them look quite nice for people. I've just put in some cannellini beans because, you know, that's the complaint about, or one of the complaints about a more plant-based diet, that there's not enough protein in it. So there's loads of sources, including kale actually, which I'm also going to pop in there, of plant-based food that's got protein in. And this is going to be so tasty, and I've just made my dinner whilst holding a sort of business meeting, so I'm a really happy bunny. Yeah, has anybody got any final thoughts or questions?
Wormeries and composters are given discounted rates by RBKC, so we'll look into that. Lake West Wormery sounds like it's on the cards. Yeah,
we did the little grow boxes as well, didn't we? That people have been giving out. I saw some of those at the event on Thursday. It's really not. I think most people, I don't know really, but a lot of people seem to have like little balconies. So even if they could just grow some radish and some salad on those balconies,
yeah,
it helps connect people with their food, doesn't it?
Brilliant.
Which is really nice. It's hard. It's hard. It's a big issue, and there's no solution, and there's lots to do, but there's also lots to get excited about, isn't there?
Yeah. I think you're getting excited about your dinner there, Mark.
You see me at it.
Guys, is there any more questions for Mark before we allow him to go off and have his tea? If not, Mark, did you say you're going to ping across that recipe for us, or it's?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just put it in the chat, and then everybody can taste it out. Yeah, I've just got it here. Nice. And obviously, to reduce food waste, just use whatever you've got. If you don't have what it says in the recipe, mix it up a bit. Little bit of left. If anybody's got a little bit of leftover wine, that would have been nice to sizzle in a bit of that. Use that up as well.
Brilliant, Mark. I appreciate your time. Thanks for giving us that really insightful stuff. Really useful conversation for us, I think. Appreciate everyone else joining the conversation as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for coming. Thank you. It's been it's been nice to kind of hang out with you a little bit and talk a little bit through that. If anybody wants to talk about anything again, just give me a shout. And I hope the kind of alternative approach to me doing a presentation and getting out and doing PowerPoint slides was okay.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed it personally. It was a much better way of doing it. Cheers, Mark. Appreciate that. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
See you
later. See you later. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.